last we left our fearless explorers, they were on a desert planet.
What was it called? Gorlak? Goomba? I don't know. Start with a G.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I think it's GY.
Gygax?
And unfortunately, I don't remember the name.
Well,
No, maybe it was Geo. Like it's like Gorix or something.
Gorlak?
Anyway.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway.
To me, it sounded like some ancient abomination from the dawn of time name, but it's just a random desert planet. And we were sent there to determine why. Or it seems that the scans showed fauna but no flora, and that's weird. So we were sent there to figure out how that is.
So yeah, we crashed real hard.
That's right.
Our ship was a big pile. Robert's character Sabina stowed away, and she's it's Sabine, but I'm so used to saying Sabina. Sabine stowed away. Fortunately, she's the engineer, so we just left her behind to fix the ship while we went off to do the mission. Because she stowed away, so she shouldn't have done that. So your punishment is you fix the ship, essentially.
I pointed out that I was perfectly capable of fixing the ship myself, but it made sense anyway that she would stay behind. Since...
Yeah. And everyone's intensely suspicious of John's character. And they want to keep him around to keep an eye on him. So, yeah.
It's just, it's funny because I keep saying things that sound similar to what Pill would say, but they know, when we crash landed, we all got injured. And the doctor fixed me up. I'm clearly human. There's nothing weird about me. But they keep thinking
Yeah. Hill was injured, but not so much as to require medical attention.
Exactly. I did require some engineering assistance, however, though, because I
were leaking.
Yes, I was leaking. As I explained, I have a prosthetic bowel, and it is leaking. It's leaking water, but anyway.
So anyway, we set out on the planet, and just trying to remember.
We started with trying to figure out which way to go first, and there was a cliff and there was a river were the two landmarks we could see. Was there something prior to actually setting off?
Not really. I mean,
there's a little bit of just sort of talking and sorting out, what we're gonna do. And
right. We saw some.
The balloonalope or whatever.
Yeah, we saw those balloon. There's these floating kind of giant elephant-sized balloons bouncing across the landscape.
Yeah.
I don't have the picture. Actually, I might be able to find a picture of them, but.
Balloonalopes.
And.
Balloonapants.
And we saw. I don't remember if we saw them first or if they just attacked us or what, but I think we saw ahead there was these huge beasts.
Oh, the charging beasts.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chumley started talking about perhaps we should hunt them, like we could have a hunt. And then Flint Daniels was, into this because we were supposed to capture specimens. And so I was very confused by this, and I asked them, I've noticed that humans often gain pleasure from killing lesser creatures. Can you explain this to me? I don't understand it. And they started explaining, there's they're not lesser. It's a challenge. And I said, well, it seems that we are, heavily armed and armored, and they don't really stand any chance against us. And they're like, no, it'll be exhilarating.
Yeah.
All right. So we started heading out, and we got charged by those things right away, and they attacked us. And this is due to a combination of Robert having an idea in his mind of how their stats should be, combined with the fact that I didn't really account for solo creatures in my stat building, so we basically just obliterated them. 3 of them came up, and they just turned into goo, turned into mist as we blasted them.
We've all got these heavy machine laser guns and stuff like that, and so a monster pops up and goes roar, and we all just go. That.
As it's charging, I was asking, are you scared by this? Are you scared enough that this is sufficient?
Yeah.
And
Kill kept loudly declaring, "I am not terrified."
Chumley was saying, "This is stressful. And Flint Daniels said, Space Ranger is never afraid. And so afterwards, we just obliterated them. And I asked, was this sufficiently terrifying that it was pleasurable to kill it?
Yeah.
And they were like, I guess so. And Flint Daniels took me aside and explained that, we had to get these guys for biological specimens anyway. So we had to kill them. And since we had to kill them, why not do it as a hunt? The hunt.
The hunt.
And so I just looked blankly and continued on.
Meanwhile, I kept loudly declaring that I wasn't terrified. Until Dr. Yoon at one point pointed out that a normal person would be somewhat scared. So I declared that I was somewhat scared.
So they took some the charging beasts. We called them rhinoceroses at one point because they were huge and they had 3 horns. And then we took some horns as a trophy. Sample. It was both. That was their. But
anyway,
Obliterated the poor
the charging
locals
beasts
or whatever.
No, these aren't the balloonificants. These are charging beasts.
we just called them charging beasts because they don't have a name, at least not to us.
Right.
So yeah, we shot them to pieces, and then collected the pieces, and then we talked a bunch about whether we were afraid or not.
And whether killing these creatures was pleasurable, which seemed to horrify Dr. Yoon in particular. And there seemed to be a little bit of disagreement, but not like they were disagreeing. But Daniels was saying that you shouldn't hunt things unless you needed to kill them. But if you needed to kill them, you may as well enjoy the hunt. Whereas Chumley seemed to think, but he didn't.
Hunting's great.
He seemed to think that there was like an inherent value in just hunting things. But he didn't speak up. I think because he's used to
Being wrong.
being out of touch with the current situation, and so he didn't want to once again say a thing that people would be like not approving of or whatever.
So then we moved on. We were headed for the river because that seemed like the most promising site to find, diverse life forms. Along the way, we noticed that there were some rock formations in the desert that are like these tall spines in the ground. And I don't know who else noticed it. One of us noticed that one moved slightly.
It was actually me, I think.
Was it you? Okay.
Doesn't really matter.
And so you pointed that out, and so we took a bit of a digression to go and investigate one. And so we go over these rock spines, they're like 8 feet tall. And I jokingly called them piercers, but it turns out I was right. They are little life forms that have a rock spike as a shell. They were just sort of like playing dead, holding still when we approached. Because they're on the ground pointing up, there's really nothing they could do. But, we're investigators. So we push one over and have a look. And Robert described it as it has feet that are the size of hamburgers. I don't know why specifically he chose hamburgers, but the term hamburger feet sort of became one of the things of the session. We talked about hamburger feet.
That's right. And once it got knocked over, I pulled out my auto laser, which is like a machine gun laser. And I was like, all right, would it be pleasurable to kill this creature? It seems lesser than us. And they're like, no.
Just lying there flailing its little hamburger feet. Or whatever.
And once it was clear that was not pleasurable, I was just like,
Okay.
I look of like I'll never understand.
Let me know when it's appropriate. Yeah.
So then we started discussing vivisecting it for science.
Was anyone ever actually suggesting that in character though?
I don't know in character. Out of character, we kept talking about vivisecting it until finally, I can't remember who it was, but one of the people at the table was like, we could just kill it and dissect it instead of vivisect it. We'll get the same information and not be horrifying monsters.
Yeah, you can know that for sure.
So yeah, we ultimately killed and dissected it to try and learn more about the life forms of this planet. My theory was that these things were predators of balloonificants, and whenever they went boom on the ground, these things would try and shuffle to be underneath them, and so the balloonificant would land on the spike.
Right.
And go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But near as we could tell, these things are just like the little shuffling animal things, and we really couldn't tell what they ate. But we did notice that they had in their sort of rocky shells, they had the same sort of microbes
It was in their skin.
in their skin. Okay.
Yeah. There's these microbes that we found detected in the sand, all throughout the sand. And they have those microbes all throughout their skin.
Yeah. So we carried on, and we reached the river. And we were, as we sort of reached the river and started just poking around, looking at stuff, we got attacked by swarms of crabs. They're little guys, each the size of a hamburger. And that was a very easy fight, but that one was sort of intended to be easy, so that one was alright.
Are you sure this planet wasn't named like Birdjacks or something?
Yeah. We just obliterated those, and upon the obliteration of them, I immediately asked, all right, or I wouldn't have said all right, but was killing these creatures pleasurable? And I think that's when I first started, or I killed them. I killed a bunch of crabs, and then I said, the hunt! So I started repeating that every time we killed something.
It's around here that Hill was starting to realize that, hey, this guy's a bit weird. And going, yes, everyone's paying attention to him. There's this business of him and not me. So it was working out well for me. So we killed the crab, and then we noticed across the river there's a cluster of huts, and there's these humanoid creatures with 4 arms that live in those huts.
They have sort of skull-like heads, and
no mouths.
Yeah, and no mouths. And Robert made the mistake of assuming that players would not constantly make fun of his picture if he chose a well-known image. So because they were kind of skull-like, he chose a picture of the Silence from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
So then people constantly kept looking over at the screen the picture was on and being like, whoa, what's that?
Mostly me, I have to admit.
Well, everyone did it at first, but Brian kept doing it the longest.
Yeah. But anyway.
That's because Brian commits.
Yeah.
I don't think Robert minded too much. I think he spent too much time as a player to. He's kind of on the side of the people doing that.
Yeah.
Usually I'm like, I don't want people doing that kind of dumb thing, so I'll avoid it. But
yeah, and we didn't let it distract too much from actually what's going on. So these guys come out of their huts after we killed the crabs, and one of them comes over, crosses the river. They can fly using these cloak things. It's kind of neat. And they have telekinetic abilities that let them boost themselves into the air.
And they came over because Flint Daniels started talking to them, saying, "Hey, sentient life forms, amity of all species, da 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 da," stuff like that, and makes a great check. And they're looking at him, and they're looking at his head, and it's clear that they're realizing that the sounds coming from that hole in his head are clearly a language.
Yeah.
But they're like,
what the heck is going on there?
Turns out,
What's wrong with your face?
turns out they're telepathic. That's how they communicate. But they aren't able to communicate with us.
Oh.
Not in the way that they're used to. But one of them comes over and puts his hand on Flint Daniels' head, and then he's able to manage to get through. It's just we're sort of deaf, as it were.
Yeah.
and they don't communicate in words; they communicate in images and pictures and ideas. There was a bunch of impressions that they got, though I don't remember exactly. But basically, Flint Daniels makes a good impression on them, and they
don't mind that we killed basically everything we came across.
Yeah, he tells them about that because he tells them about killing the charging beasts, which makes them very happy because they give images of the charging beasts hunting them. Oh, I forgot. They dissected a charging beast and found humanoid bones in its stomach, and they didn't care that they killed they were indifferent to the
big
spiky thing, and they were kind of happy about the crabs because they're annoying. But so they were okay with our behavior on the planet thus far.
I think one of them tried to communicate with Pill, but when he put the hand on the head, there's nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
It was sort of So, Pill didn't communicate with them.
But Pill's got an artificial head.
Yeah, there's nothing in there.
They ended up trying to we allowed them to communicate with each of us, except it didn't work with Pill.
Yeah.
I didn't ask them that much. I had a lot of interesting questions, but I figured it might detract from our diplomatic thing if I asked a bunch of weird questions, so I just kept my mouth shut, or my brain shut.
Does everyone in the crew know that you got a head amputation, or is it just the doctor? You?
Well,
just
I mean, I told,
Sabine, I think.
Yeah.
Well, no, but everyone heard.
Oh, yeah.
The prosthetic head. That was. No, I guess that was also Sabine. That was Sabine I went to. Yeah.
You went to my character, Lieutenant Hawking, for the prosthetic bowel.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
That reminds me of Flint. For some reason, so my character is Harrison Montgomery Hawking, and Flint Daniels has taken to calling me Montgomery. I don't know why, but I take this as normal, I guess.
So we talked with these guys a bit, and they're very primitive. But they mentioned that further upriver or downriver, is downriver, there's a bigger town of them that has this temple. What were they talking about the temple? There was something specific they said about the temple that made us very interested.
Well, there was that.
Oh, there's a prophecy.
Yeah, they were talking about how there's a bunch of prophecies or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember why I don't think that's why we got onto the temple, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, the topic came up somehow. They have a prophecy of a being that is crowned with the sky that will end the world or something like that.
Bring destruction, I think.
Bring destruction. I think Hill asked, sort of by proxy, asked Flint to ask them whether they had any legends of, beings from beyond the stars that came and destroyed their civilization.
Right.
That was the thing Hill was interested in.
Once they discovered that there was gods in a temple, they immediately were like, "Is it the same guys?"
Which I really doubt, because it was an accident. Those guys crash landed.
Yeah, those guys were kind of incompetent. So it's not like the Stargate aliens where they're like, whatever. Those guys are just like, yeah, we crashed and we don't know how to fix our ship, so I guess we're gods now.
So yeah, we became interested in this this temple. We wanted to go and investigate it.
Actually, before we talk about that, though, I just remembered something. There was an exchange. They asked if we could medically examine one of them, and Flint Daniels offered himself in exchange, you can medically examine me. So, of course, he takes off his shirt, and they come over and start examining him.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, during the examination, they discovered that they had big, broad feet, and they had those microbes in there, and that was what led us to the discovery that the microbes, the sand is full of the microbes, and they chemically break down the sand into nutrients. And all the creatures on that planet absorb the microbes and their food output through their feet. So that's why they don't have mouths, except for the predators have mouths. But like all the other things, like those things, they all just absorb things through the ground. Yeah.
So that solves the main mystery we were sent here to solve. But, that sort of seems like while we're here, there's a bunch of other stuff we should find out about these intelligent beings that live here.
Mm-hmm. So the key to surviving on a desert planet is burger feet.
Yeah.
Yep. Shuffled in the sand.
Yeah.
Poor Robert. People kept, both Brian and Robin have a biology degree, so immediately they're just peppering him with questions about the details, and he's like, well, you guys know a lot more about this than I do, so I just kind of had a cool idea. And that was when we were discussing, you got to go with the GM trick of just take the best idea that the players had and act as if that was your idea all along.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Why is this like this? I don't know. Seems to be a big mystery.
Well, what if it's this? Burgox 3.
So we decided we want to go visit this temple and find out more about this prophecy of the being crowned in the sky that will bring ruin. So we head down the river in our inflatable rafts, which we of course have. I mean, it makes sense that we would have that in our pack of stuff. Yeah. And we head down the river until it's nightfall. Then we pull ashore and make camp. And we have to decide on who's going to take watch. And Hawking says, I can take all of the watches. I don't need to sleep. I mean, I can take one of the watches. I need to sleep.
Well, it's actually not quite like that, because there is. I mean, it's funny because you don't know, but there is a key difference that would only be apparent to me. But it was very similar to that. It was, I can take all the watches since I do not require sleep. Oh wait, never mind. Yes, I do. And and so at least this made Flint Daniels suspicious, and we were discussing it, and I just explained that I sometimes get confused about things like that. And he asked me where I was from. I said I was from Seattle, Washington, and you know,
Yeah.
my. He
Are
asked me
you 10
about.
crows in a human suit?
No, I've already been medically examined, and he asked me about my parents, which I had to think of because I hadn't, as a player, thought of them. And my father is a computer programmer, and my mother is a hyperdentist. So I said, hyperdentist, what's that? I said, oh, that's just what dentists are called now.
It's space now.
So he's a clone that was improperly taught.
Anyway, so, and he asked me, you're kind of weird, like, what makes you the way that you are? And I said, I'd rather not talk about that. And I said, all right, that's fine. Flint Daniels moves.
So yeah, Hill is secretly going, score! This guy's got everyone focused on him. I can't remember who takes what watches.
It didn't matter, because
Yeah.
ultimately they saw a charging beast off in the distance sleeping, and no one
He
disturbed it.
decided not to disturb it.
But then in the morning it woke up and started charging towards us.
So we
So
just
which I said-
basically lined up the firing squad.
Yeah. I said, the hunt!
Talking's really gotten into it.
Yeah. So we just eviscerated it again, and
Yeah.
and
It's like that.
excellent. Killing that creature was very pleasurable, wasn't it?
It's just like
Was
the movie The Predator, where an alien goes like to be a big game hunter and stuff, and the prey he's up against is just these ordinary people, and he's got like laser boomerangs
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
He's invisible.
Yeah.
It won't kill you unless you're armed.
Right.
Yes, but it's never enough to really matter.
Pointy stick counts.
Yeah.
You didn't trim your fingernails today, sir. You're armed.
It's very much the look out, he's got a gun!
Look out, sir.
He's coming right for us.
He's coming right for it.
Anyway.
Ewan
yeah.
was horrified with all this talk of killing things for pleasure, but she kept saying killing people for pleasure. And I was like, no, killing sentient life forms for pleasure is unacceptable. But killing lesser life forms for pleasure is a normal human activity.
As I've been told by Flint Daniels, Space Ranger.
So we killed that thing easily again, another one, and we got in the raft and headed further downriver. And the river went through a canyon with high walls, and ultimately we came to a point where the river basically seemingly terminates in a city that's like built into the cliff or right in front of the cliff. I wasn't entirely clear.
I think it's like in front of the cliff, and then on top of the cliff, there's the temple.
So presumably
the temple is a higher level than the city.
So presumably the water flows into a cave or something, but we don't know because that's basically where we stopped. So
Yeah.
we also realized that we should have radio contact, and no one actually checked on Sabine or anything, which we probably would have
Yeah.
done. So
See if the charging beasts have eaten her.
and when we mentioned that, Robert seemed to be put out that we never mentioned talking to her, so they probably we expected us to.
Yeah.
And really and realistically, I'm sure we would have.
Oh, yeah,
So
we would've at
we'll
least
have to
checked
deal with
in.
that next time.
Lieutenant Pill, personal log, encryption key 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Things are going very well, both on a personal level and on the level of my mission. They have a prophecy here about a being crowned with the sky who will bring destruction. Must investigate that. Very promising lead. Meanwhile, everyone has become very suspicious of whether Lieutenant Hawking is human. I must cultivate that suspicion. It deflects excellently.
Mission report, Flint Daniels, Space Ranger. Now this is the life. After a harrowing voyage, we have landed on a planet and already completed our mission. Much science has been done, and after a few fractious episodes with the local wildlife, we have gathered numerous trophies, scientific specimens, to return home with, and are now embarked on a voyage down the local river towards the central temple to research the strange customs of these new people. And did I mention they're telepaths? Boy, are they ever telepaths. This is why I came.
Flex Officer's personal log. Despite my mention that I was able to perform her duties fully at her ability level, Lieutenant Anpillay stayed behind to fix the ship. I have come along, though I have not had much to do on this mission since there has not been too much engineering. However, I have learned a lot about humans and whether it is pleasurable to kill things or not. Of course, it is unacceptable to kill sentient life forms for pleasure, but killing lesser life forms for pleasure is okay and good. It's pleasurable to kill them if it is a challenge and if it is necessary. Then it is pleasurable to kill them and take a trophy. For the hunt!
Medical Officer's Log 6. Well, we have made contact with another sentient life. Wow, another one. There must be a lot of sentient life out there. Who would have thought? What are the chances? Pretty low. I need somebody who's better at math than to figure this out for me. Like Sabine. I miss Sabine. She is way more normal than that other guy. The not Sabine guy.
Lieutenant Chumley, security officer's log. So here we are, this planet of desert. It's actually moist. It's very odd. And no one seems to have even recalled that we have left Lieutenant Ample at the ship all by herself. And everyone wants to go off to see this town and this temple, which I agree sounds like a great adventure. But perhaps maybe we should look in on Ample. I mean, she could be totally in the suds to be in trouble. We have no idea what's going on with her. It could be Dickie with her to be all over with her. And what if she needs our assistance? The gentlemen that I am traveling with seem to have no understanding of any kind of behavior that would be appropriate, and they treat the women of our party as if they are men. It is disgraceful. I am ashamed of them.